Hey, everybody, welcome. It's Saturday morning, Multifamily Unplugged. Sure, I'm glad that you are here this morning. Listen, I always say go wake somebody up, grab a cup of coffee, stick a cup of coffee in somebody's hand, get them here, because this morning we are going to blow your socks off. Hey, I got a good friend that's going to join me this morning. Over the last couple of years since I got back to the Chicago market, I really have developed some good relationships with people. And this guy on today happens to be one of those relationships that I've built over the last couple of years. And I know with his experience, my experience, we are going to have a lot to talk about this morning. So if you're into multifamily, if you're into real estate investing, if you are into private capital and private equity, and helping others and having a heart to help others, then you need to go tell somebody that we're here. Go wake them up, get them here. Listen in. I'm going to bring John in right now, introduce him. But I'm joined this morning by John Casmon. John, good morning. How's it going,
Good
buddy?
morning. Good morning, Mike, man. It's good to see you. I'm excited to be here this fine Saturday morning and talking to you and all those wonderful folks who have decided to do something special and join us today.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Over the last couple of years, you and I have we've had some good encounters, some good conversations, and what I always say is it's always good to connect with somebody who knows the business, who's smart in the business, who understands the business, because there's a language in itself that a lot of people don't get, right? So it's always good to have that conversation. Anyhow, why don't you do this? Tell people who you are, where you're from, what you're about, and what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is John Casmon. I live in Cincinnati, but I am a Midwest guy, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I lived in Chicago, lived in Detroit, now down here in Cincy, and I lived in Dayton as well. And we're real estate investors, particularly apartment investors through multifamily syndication. We have partnered with investors to invest in over $100 million worth of apartments, and we are continuing to scale that. Before really focusing on real estate full time, I was in corporate America working for advertising and marketing campaigns, large companies, General Motors, Nike, Coors Light, Mountain Dew, other brands like that. And for me, what really happened was I went through two bankruptcies, right? I worked for two companies that went bankrupt, and I was fortunate enough to not get let go during either of those times. In fact, I never missed a paycheck. So I was spared, but I also saw the implications and the impact it had on my colleagues and the stress and anxiety that I felt during that time frame. It was really important for me to create passive income streams so I wasn't solely relying on a W-2 job. And that really attracted me to real estate and ultimately pushed me to build this portfolio.
Boy, I couldn't find the mute button. But, so tell us a little bit about when you first went into the real estate investing business. Did you go in just as a real estate investor, or did you go right into multifamily?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a big fan of education, right? Taking the time, listening to podcasts, watching videos, reading books, going to networking events. Education is so important if you're going to do something like this and if you're going to make some wise investments. So I started to educate myself, and almost everyone I came across, started in single family, but then eventually got into multifamily. And I heard the same story over and over and over. I wish I started in multifamily. So because I'd heard that so consistently, and even in the books that I read, I made a decision to start multifamily. So we started small. We started with a 2 unit. My wife and I bought a 2 unit property. We lived in one unit, rented out the other unit, commonly now known as a house hack. And that's how we got started. But yeah, we used our money, we saved it, we bought a property. We would, continue to work, save money, manage our own properties, and we started scaling slowly that way.
What's crazy is a lot of people think, oh man, I can't go into multifamily. I don't know enough about it. I don't understand it. And I encourage people. I say, look, the two mistakes I made in my life. One was didn't get a coach sooner. And the second one is that I didn't go right into multifamily. If I'd have went right into multifamily rather than spend the time, and listen, don't get me wrong, I did great in residential real estate, but when I went in the multifamily business, it was a whole different world. A lot to learn, but boy, it's exciting. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot of benefits. And not just for you being in the business, but for the people around you. I always say there's two groups of people that we can affect, and that's the stakeholders and the shareholders. And the shareholders are those limited partners or private investors we bring in, but those stakeholders are those people outside of our gates that we affect in the community.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on, right? I mean, I think for me, it's like just listening to people, like you just said, right? I mean, I heard people say that over and over and over. So because I didn't have any experience with single family, it was really a no-brainer. And the advantage I had too, so for anybody joining us in the Chicagoland area, there's so many 2 to 4 units in Chicago that it was an easy decision to start with that. You know, there are probably more 2 to 4 units than there are single family homes in the actual core of the city. So it was kind of a common thing to find and do. It wasn't like I was making some huge sacrifice. And I was young enough where I was a renter. So I was coming from renting. And for me, going from renting an apartment to essentially living in an apartment, but owning the whole building was an easier transition. I didn't feel like I was downgrading or making these huge sacrifices in my life. It was really more of a financial change because now I went from living in, this apartment to this apartment. But instead of me paying $1,500 in rent, somebody else was paying the bulk of the mortgage, and I was pretty much living rent free or without a many expenses. So I was saving a ton of money, and it made it easier to save more money to reinvest in other assets, and actually helped us really grow our portfolio.
Yeah, that's cool. So talk about the first deal you did. You said that, in Chicago, there's 2 flats and 3 flats, and we know there's a ton of it here, right? So
Yeah.
talk about that first deal you did. How was that for you?
Well, I think in fairness, I got to start by saying that you have to go back in time a decade. Okay, so we're now talking 2012. I had just moved from Detroit to Chicago, and one of the reasons I wanted to live in Chicago in particular was I wanted to invest in real estate, and we were looking around different neighborhoods, and we landed on North Center. And the thing that jumped out to me about North Center was it was the only neighborhood out of 77 distinct Chicago neighborhoods. It was the only one that didn't lose any value, not on the residential side, but it didn't lose any value during the economic downturn. And that was just shocking to me,
Hmm.
not Lincoln Park, not Streeterville, not some of these other neighborhoods you may know that you would expect to maybe be a bit more consistent. North Center. So that data point really made me comfortable to invest in that area. So the 2 unit property, we got it for I think $340,000, 342 or something like that. We put about 40 or 50K into it, renovating our unit, renovating some of the exterior things. And we lived in that thing until I left Chicago.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing for us was when we went to go find our next investment, the agent we tapped told us that we had probably created a ton of equity in that property. Now we were hesitant because yes, we put about 40 or 50K into it. So I think we were, we kind of expected to get that back.
Right.
But she said, no, I think it's more than that. And we got an appraisal done, and we had created well north of 6 figures worth of equity. And for me, that was so key because this now became a real thing.
Well, that,
Everything I had read about, everything I had heard about how to create wealth and build wealth through real estate investing, it was still all, in the books. It wasn't real to me. I wasn't doing it. Even though I own this property, it was to me, it was a long-term proposition. And to see that we actually created that value in like 18 months was
wow.
incredible. And we were able to take out a 6 figure line of credit. And we ended up using that fund to buy an 8 unit building, after we had bought another 3 unit building. So that really got the ball rolling as far as investing and really taking my mindset from, hey, let's just try to make a little bit of money on the side to, wow, this might be kind of a business or something that, we do for the long term as opposed to just kind of a little side hustle.
Kind of makes you look at corporate America differently, doesn't it? It kind
I
of,
made more than my salary.
yeah, right.
I made more than my salary through the reposition of the property I was living in. And then by the way, I was able to refinance, right? So I wiped out the FHA loan that we had. I actually reduced my loan by
Yeah.
refinancing. And I was increasing rent. So I mean, you just check every box, it was like a home run deal. And yeah, to your point, I mean, I made more money doing that, refinancing that project than I'd made in a whole year. So it really just put my mindset into, okay, we need to save every dollar we can and acquire as many of these as we can. So that's kind of what started to happen for me.
So tell me what kind of property you like today, John. So you've gone from this 2 unit. What do you like today? And is it bigger, same size? Do you feel you can make, you talk about that. Talk about what
Yeah.
where you're at today with that.
Well, we scaled up. So we now do larger apartment buildings, typically looking at anywhere between 50 and 250 units, maybe even up to 300 units on these apartment complexes. We stay in the commercial space. And we like apartments because they're kind of straightforward, right? Everyone needs a place to live. Apartments are in high demand. There's really not enough housing available right now. So we really like the apartment space. A lot of other people like the apartment space too. So there's a lot of competition. But nonetheless, we think the fundamentals are sound. So we closed on 2 properties last year, an 81 unit property in Florence, Kentucky, and 104 unit down in Louisville, Kentucky. We're constantly scouring for new deals and new opportunities.
Well, it's interesting, and how long did it take you to get to a point where you're doing, 200 unit deals?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me was the transition. So here's the thing I want everyone to understand is you don't wake up, or at least for me, at least, I didn't wake up expecting to invest in these large assets. What happened is you start surrounding yourself with people. You talked about networking, right? And you getting back to Chicago. Well, what ends up happening is as you're looking to scale and grow, you've got to surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, right? And they're going to help you understand what it takes to get there. So for me, as we were buying that 2 unit building, bought a 3 unit building, bought the 8 unit building, what became clear to me is that I couldn't do this just by myself. My wife and I were saving all of our money. We were tag teaming it. So she and I were doing really well, but we had a couple of problems, right? One was we kept running out of our money. So in order to buy a property, we had to go and save another 6 figures to, create the capital to go buy it. Again, as you start getting bigger and bigger properties and we didn't sell anything at that point. So, as you're adding to the portfolio, there's more to manage. There's more things that you've got to deal with. Keep in mind, we were growing our family at this time. So when we started, it was just she and I. We ended up having our first son in 2014, had our second child in 2016. So now here we are with 2 boys, 2, young boys, both still working full-time jobs and this growing real estate portfolio. It just became to be a lot, and a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety kicked in. So what ended up happening for me is I hired a coach. You just hit on your mistakes, right? So I hired a coach. And for me, the reason I hired a coach was I knew I wanted to scale. And I knew in order to scale, I needed to be open to working with other people. And in order to be comfortable working with other people, I needed to have someone in my corner that could help me identify the blind spots and remove the challenges that I might not anticipate. Someone who has done it before, someone who's raised money, someone who's structured deals, someone who's, done some of these larger multi-million dollar deals. And that was really important for me to feel comfortable reaching out to friends, family, other people in my network and asking them or offering to them the opportunity to invest. So that's what I did. And the reason that was so key in getting to the larger properties is because that person was doing, 3-digit unit deals. And the people I was now meeting as being a part of that group were doing these larger deals. So what ended up happening is I met a guy who was looking to scale his own portfolio, very similar to us. And they, fast forward about 6 months, they got a larger apartment community under contract. And they asked me if I would be interested in partnering with them on that.
Yeah.
And we did. It was 192 units, much larger than, I would have anticipated since the last deal I did was an 8 unit. I was just looking for a 20 unit, right? And they had a good chunk of it. They just needed a little bit of help with a few things here and there. So I was able to come in and scale from that standpoint. So if you are open in your mindset, you can now be open to opportunities. If you would have told me before that, hey, if someone's going to invite you to join them on a 192 unit deal, would you do it? I'm like, no, of course not. I just did an 8 unit. I'm not touching anything that big. That's crazy. I think the biggest I could go is maybe, 16 or 20 units, right? Maybe 24. That's kind of where I would have been comfortable. But because I was now leaning on the experience of other people, it made it easier for me to come in and be a part of a team as opposed to trying to run it all by myself.
Yeah. Hey, you said 2 things. You said remove the blind spots, and what else? You said, remember what you said?
Removing the blind spots, and also just scaling a network, I think was the biggest thing is just surrounding yourself with people who are doing what it is you want to do.
So, what's interesting is a lot of people don't have that attitude, right? I can go do this myself. I'll go find a mentor. I'll just go partner with, but there's blind spots, things you don't know, things you don't understand. that all of a sudden they come out of left field and you go, where did that come from? So I
Yeah.
think that that's really important, and that needs to settle in for people that we all have blind spots. And I don't care if it's in the real estate space, in the mortgage space, whatever business you're in. If you're an entrepreneur, things are going to come up and grab you. That you weren't anticipating, and they show up, and you go, man, how did this happen? So, um, I think we all walk through seasons of life where those types of things happen to us, and it's what we do with them. It's how we deal in that season that takes us to where we're going to go. I think it's always exciting to talk to somebody who's walked this path, because everybody who's successful and who wanted to be successful started out kind of where you did, not real sure. Do I want to stay in small multifamily, single family? How do I do this? You know what? Screw it. Let's just go right into big multifamily, and and I think that that's what really makes a difference in people's lives, is just taking initiative, you know?
Yeah, initiative is key, and I would say too, like, you have to make it easy to take initiative. So for me, I'll give you a clear example, right?
Mm.
Um, they say that you either run away from pain or towards pleasure, right? So when I was looking at those, those big decisions, right? The first deal we ever did, that 2-unit property. Well, the alternative for me was to pay $1,500 in rent or be homeless, right? Because my lease was expiring and I was hee-hawing. I was interested in real estate, right? I was looking at properties, but I was still a little nervous. I didn't want to pull the trigger. Well, my landlord at the time said he wasn't going to renew my lease, and it had nothing to do with me. His wife was pregnant, and they knew that we were looking to move out. And I was like, "Hey, I'm looking to buy something, so I don't know." And he's like, "Well, look, I want to get somebody in who's going to sign a year-long lease because I can't keep playing and going back and forth with you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Well, now I'm like, I don't want to move, so I either have to agree to this guy to sign a 1-year lease, or I got to go find a place. But I didn't want to move and do another year, renting. So that made me look at the list of properties I was looking at and act with a bit more certainty. And we got more aggressive to say, okay, you know what? I actually think this one can work. Let's put an offer. Let's see what happens. I would say the second thing is, when we bought that 8-unit building, and I should have been excited. It was my first commercial property. We were scaling our portfolio. We had over $1.5 million worth of real estate under our portfolio. um, but I was really dejected, and I was dejected because I was sitting there thinking about the time and process it was going to take to save another 6 figures before I could go buy another property. And it was just like, I got to get back on the hamster wheel again so I could try to make this happen. And it made me realize, you know what? There's a better way. You've been trying to ignore that better way. You need to go embrace it, or at least learn more about it. And I sat down with a good friend of mine, and I watched her go from a 9-unit portfolio, which, by the way, I thought was pretty impressive and like just badass by itself, right? This one had 9 units. I was like, wow, nine, that's crazy. Well, I watched her go from 9 units to 90 units in about 12 to 18 months. And that made me say, she's playing a different game. And I don't know exactly how she did it, what she did. Maybe she just got, won the lottery. I don't know. But I need to find out. And I asked her to breakfast, and I said, "Hey, I would just love to take," and we had known each other and, talked and whatnot. But we went to breakfast, and that breakfast changed me because she told me what she did was she started working with other people, and she had some equity partners who basically said, "Hey, I got $500,000, go shopping." And that opened it up. And here I was. I love the real estate stuff. I love looking for the deals. I was, excited about what we were doing, but I wasn't excited about waiting to save the money I needed to buy. And here I was realizing that there are people who have money who want to invest, but they don't want to do that. They don't have the time. Maybe they're out in the West Coast or New York or somewhere else where the market doesn't make sense for them to invest in the backyard. Maybe they're full-time professionals. They've got their jobs. Maybe they have a family. They have other passions that they want to pursue. Everybody doesn't love real estate, but real estate can help everybody, right? And understanding that dynamic really shifted in my head from that conversation. And I think, like, again, 3 weeks later is when I met the person who became my mentor. And when we were talking, I'm like, okay, again, the pieces just came together. And they say that, hey, when the student is ready, right, the mentor or the teacher will appear. That's exactly what happened. If I didn't talk to her when I talked to her and specifically asked, what'd you do? And have that come off of the feeling of dejection that I felt from, just basically looking up at a mountain and be like, all right, I just, it's like climbing up a mountain. You get to kind of a plateau and you're like, all right, we did it. And then you look up like, oh, no, we didn't. We got way more to go on this mountain. That's how I felt. So if I wasn't in that mindset at that time, I don't know if I would have even noticed the opportunity. You know what I mean? I would have just sat with this person. They would have mentioned something about coaching. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I probably would have kept going, right? And moved on to the next conversation. But at that time, I think mentally it all came together where I said, you know what? I think this is exactly what I need. And it just happened to work out for me.
Hey, what's cool is that you said she was playing a different game. And I want that to resonate with people, right? Because you could play the same game that you've been playing since you were in grammar school. You can keep playing, kicking the soccer ball down the same field, or you can play a different game. Hey, let me just give a word for our sponsor real quick, if I could. Hey, today's show is brought to you by Urban REI Property Management. If you are a real estate investor in Chicago and the surrounding markets, and you are looking for a new source, a new hand to help you re-engineer your property or bring your property value up, we would love to have the opportunity to come out and meet with you and show you some different strategies that might work for you. So call Urban REI Property Management today for all your property management solutions. Hey, John, um, in playing that different game, let's talk about private equity, because to go from, hey, the house hacker, right, to doing a 2 or 3 unit small multifamily building, or even building a small multifamily portfolio, but to go from that space to 20 unit, 50, 100 unit, however you're going to scale up to get to a bigger place, you can't do it by yourself. You need a team. And some of that team comes with other partners that are better at things than I'm at. And some of that team comes with people who like to invest in real estate, but they don't want to get their hands dirty, right? They just want, hey, John, here's my money. Make this thing work and tell me what I get at the end of the year. So the passive investor. So talk about that. How did you get into that world, and what's that look like for you today?
Yeah, I mean, for me, part of it was, as I was having those conversations, right, and getting that mentor, for me, it was always a matter of if I can buy real estate and not have to put 100% of the down payment myself or out of our savings, it would allow us to scale and grow and potentially help other people along the way. So
Yeah.
that was the mindset I had starting out into it. And what ended up happening is we were starting to talk to other people, getting out of our comfort zone, sharing what we were doing, why we were doing it, why real estate, how it works, understanding and educating people on all these things. And in those conversations, we got some pretty good responses. There are people who are interested in it. Some people were like, yeah, let me see, wait and see what happens. But a lot of people were interested in learning more and understanding what real estate could do for them. And as we looked for opportunities, it was kind of challenging finding a deal that worked for us and worked for investors. And that's why we ended up partnering with that first group on that deal, was that we were having a hard time finding the deal. We had now had these conversations with potential investors and they were excited. They were asking me, hey man, when's that deal coming? I'm excited. You told me about the cash flow I can get, the appreciation potential, the inflation fighting benefits, the tax benefits. I want to get some of that, and they're waiting on me to bring that deal. So I think that was really key and allowed me to say, okay, how do we go find this deal? How do we, instead of trying to find the deal by myself, right? Because I was looking for the deal, I was underwriting the deal, I was talking to the brokers, I was submitting the offers, I was doing it all myself.
Right.
And I was having a hard time finding a deal that worked. So what ended up happening is I said, okay, I need to really work a little bit harder to find this deal, and it can't just be me doing everything. So let me reach out to folks in my network. Let me put it out there that I'm willing to help and partner and be a part of a team, as opposed to being that solo player trying to do everything by himself. And that ultimately is how we ended up doing that first deal, and we've continued to scale out our team. So today we operate in two verticals. One is where we kind of are the lead operators, where me and my team and my partners, we will find the deals, analyze the deals, get them under contract, and then bring those opportunities to the investors in our network. The other way we operate is that we will, partner with other operators that we've built relationships with, especially those in markets that we can't, really run ourselves. So you think about the Carolinas, you think about Texas, Florida, Georgia, markets like that have great, great demographics, great trajectory of what's happening in those markets. But, I live in Cincinnati and I'm a Midwest kid. So for me to try to compete with the big boys down in Florida who live there and they're talking to the brokers every day and taking them golfing, it just doesn't make as much sense. So instead, I'd rather partner with those operators and say, hey, if you find a deal that fits our criteria in a market we love, I know how you think, I know how you operate. Why don't we team up and partner? That way I could bring more opportunities to our investors. So we kind of have the best of both worlds where we still kind of try to run our own deals in, I would say, a 2-hour radius of the Cincinnati market. So Indianapolis, Columbus, Louisville, Kentucky, markets like that. But we also still like the Southeast region where it's not too far from those markets. But we can partner with guys who are, in those markets and they have a bit of a competitive advantage for us.
I like that. It's nice having both of those verticals because then it gives you a little bit of both. So let me just, I just want to ask, so would you GP a deal out of state where, in a Florida or a Texas market?
So we're general partners in all the deals that we do. I think when you're talking about is like, would we be kind of lead operator?
Right, right.
So I think so the short answer is yes, but that's not the approach we want to take just because I feel that one, there are people who are better at that in those markets than I can be.
Sure.
So I'd rather lean on their expertise if they're in that market and they understand it. But we're certainly open to it. It's just I like to play to your strengths is kind of the way I see it. I understand the Midwest. I talked about living all over the Midwest. I know these markets really well. I have some pretty good relationships here. I run the Midwest Real Estate Networking Summit. I've got different events there, so I have a strong network in this part of the country.
Yep.
So while I love Atlanta and love Texas and Florida, the reality is there are people who are, grinding away in those markets every single day, scouring for deals and opportunities. And I mean, they're gonna miss out on deals or pass on deals that many of us would never even know were out there. So I'd rather lean on their experience and expertise than me trying to come into that market and trying to do something that we can't do as well. And here's the real thing. You can only be great at a couple of things. You got to have focus, right? If you try to chase deals in every market, how do you really know when the opportunity is? How do you build those relationships with the players on the ground so that you truly are getting these unique opportunities and deals? I don't see how you scale when you have a shotgun approach. I really think you have to be precise. Which markets are you playing in? Who are your contacts? Really understanding what your game plan is. And then as you want to scale, I think the way to scale is through partnership and through leaning on other individuals who can help you. So again, there's a whole lot of ifs and whats and possibilities, but generally speaking, we try to focus on what's close to us and then create partnerships where we can lean on people in those other markets.
I think you're spot on, and we're in such a relationship business. So I've been in the business a long time. I know a lot of people, but the people I know will say, "Hey, go talk to this guy." Or go talk to this guy. The introduction today is probably more important than anybody else. Anybody I work with, I say, hey, listen, I'll open up my database to you because if I can help you build your circle of influence, your network, it's going to help you get more successful quicker, right? So I really think that it's that relationship building piece, and the more people we know, the more exposure we create them, we create ourselves. And so this deal we just did in Florida,
Hmm.
we looked at 100 deals. I kid you not, 100 deals passed my desk for us to write 7 LOIs, be the bridesmaid 6 times, and finally get to the altar once. And it was a long way up, and I had to, and this is what I'll say, is I had to really dig in and build the relationship with the broker for the broker to say, okay, I'm going to bet on you. This is the first multifamily deal you've done in a decade. Your partners have never done one. And I know you're bringing this KP that's got 8,000 units under management, but I'm going to bet on you. And boy, I'm glad he did, because we got the thing done. We got it over the finish line. We're still raising a little bit of equity for it. But what I can tell you is that there's that sense of satisfaction, not just for you for getting the deal done, but all your partners, the brokers, the lenders, everybody that's involved. Because when you think about everything that goes into one of these deals today, it's a tough thing to get down the field. So
Yeah, it's tough, man. And I will say too that, you know, um, we've got partners. We have a partner we worked with in South Carolina. So we built a relationship there. We knew they were in that market. And we basically say, listen, you find something that you like. I like the way you think. I think we've got great rapport. We think about the business the same way. If you find something that you like, shoot it to us and let's see if it makes sense for us to join. And we ended up partnering with them on a deal that just went full cycle. We actually rolled over some of the proceeds. We are in a new deal in that market. And it's a great way to kind of scale and grow. Conversely, you may have people who are listening to us who maybe are struggling to get that first deal. Trying to get that traction, trying to get that first, like you said, right? Putting in those LOIs, putting in those offers. And I would say, I think you got a couple of things to think about. One, there are three easy ways to get going in multifamily. The first we talked about with just house hacking, right? So getting that 2 to 4 unit, living in one unit, renting out the others. The second way is kind of what you said, Mike. You got a partner. If you've got
yep,
somebody who's got some more experience, maybe you got the cash, maybe they've got the experience, partner up. Maybe you got the cash. Find somebody with experience, find somebody doing deals in your market and try to partner up with them, right? But partnership is the second easiest way to get started. And then a third way is through syndication, which is ultimately what we're talking about, either as a GP or an LP. On the GP side, you've got to bring some value. Either you're finding deals, either you are, great analyzing deals, you're great with your investor relationships and raising capital for these deals, or you're a great operator. You got some property management experience, you got some asset management experience, but you're bringing something to the table where you can be a valuable
right.
member of a general partnership team. Otherwise, if you've got funds to invest, think about investing passively. It's not it's a smart way to get going. In fact, it's the way I wish I started. So I
Mm,
started active, like we said, but let's rewind back kind of what I was going through in my life. I had, a few properties. I had a $1.5 million portfolio. I had a full-time job, demanding job. My wife had a full-time job, demanding job. We had two small children. I had two flip projects going on at the same time. And here I was searching for multifamily. Do
mm,
you think you might understand why I had a hard time finding a multifamily deal that worked? Right. And
absolutely.
instead of trying to do it all by myself, if I could have taken that money, invested with another group, continue to learn and gain that experience, right? Continue to
Mhm.
grow, build my portfolio, that would have been a much smarter way for me to grow. And then I could have doubled down on that and maybe moved to the active side. And I know a lot of limited partners or general partners, I should say, who started off as limited partners. And I just think it's a smart strategy. Start as an LP, invest in some deals, learn while you earn, get some traction, ask the questions you have, and then share what you're doing on the GP side. So there are a lot of ways to get into it, but I would say you got to make it easy. I think sometimes we just make things really hard because we have a vision in our head or we listen to someone like you or me and how we did it and think that there's a straight, narrow path for success. You don't have to wake up one day, decide you want to be a multifamily investor, go find the deal, go raise all the money for the deal, go close on the deal. They're easy ways to get started. I mean, you could, again, house hack, partner with someone else, join a syndication. Those are three easy ways to get some traction and then figure out what the next step is after you get that traction.
A lot of times it makes sense for the investor coming in the business to do it sort of from a distance. When I was first raising capital and teaching people about real estate investing, people said, "Hey, let me just give you money, you do the deal, and I'm going to watch." And then maybe down the road, I'll do it. And a lot of people did. But I think it's smart sometimes, just for not everybody, but some people, just to stand back and say, "Hey, let me just take this from a view." I'll never forget, and I have to tell this quick story because I think it's great, because it dates me, and you can't do it anymore. It doesn't work anymore, right? And there's some old school things that really work, but this is one I don't think you can make it work. When I first was raising money on my first syndication, 11 unit up in Zion, of all places, right? bought this thing, thought we could turn it around. It was just a nightmare. It was a bag of bricks when I bought it. But I put an ad in the newspaper, in the classified newspaper of the Daily Herald. You can remember this. A little 3-line classified ad for $45. And here's all I said: real estate investors want it. My phone rang off the hook for like 6 days. I raised $700,000 in 6 months as a result of that ad for the first 3 deals we did. It was just absolutely nuts. And I don't think you can duplicate that today because, there's not really any newspapers with classified ads, and people aren't looking for that today, right? So there just happened to be an audience there at that time. And then from
Well,
there,
let me say this, Michael. While you can't duplicate that specific approach, the reality is that if you back it up right, you can, right? There's a channel and a communication. I love the simplicity of the message, right?
yeah,
Real estate investors want it. If you did an online ad or you post something in a Facebook group or post something on a LinkedIn page and it said real estate investors want it, reach out if you're interested, right? That would get some traction. I would imagine, right? If you're in bigger I mean, maybe not so much BP, but if you're in different platforms, the simplicity of what you did was kind of a vague but clear call to action, right? I'm looking for real estate investors. You don't talk about for what, right? You didn't say what the property was or what the opportunity was, but if you're a real estate investor, reach out. And then I'm sure you had to go through and screen a lot of people who were not a fit and maybe they were just looking for a flip project or something like that to buy. But those things can work, right? If you can figure out the messaging and figure out what the call to action is for that end user.
John, I think that's a brilliant idea. And anybody listening to us this morning, and there's a bunch of people out on LinkedIn, and I think that's a very simple message. How many different groups are on Facebook? I got a buddy who does wholesale deals, and he goes out to Facebook, and not to real estate groups, but to garage sale groups and hustle groups and the ethnic demographic groups, and a simple post out there like that, right? And you don't know what you're going to attract or who you're going to attract. So there's a lot of people and a lot of bandwidth on these platforms today. And that's why guys like, Gary V and, are talking about using social media. And, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, I mean, the beautiful thing about marketing, I mean, and I spent 15 years in corporate America doing marketing and advertising, and the thing I've always loved is there are timeless principles. There are things, if you go back and look at like some old, magazines and read the ads. First of all, the copywriting back then was just immaculate. I mean, these people were just absolutely on point with the messaging, the wordsmith that they used, but they understood kind of the process, right? There was a bit of a structured approach to messaging. And if you go back, a lot of those techniques and tactics still work. The mediums change because now you've got the internet and social media and all of that. But understanding a trigger point for a consumer or a user, understanding the flow of the messaging, understanding the call to action, all of those things still work, right? I mean, just think about even this, right? If you tell someone, hey, come check us out on Multifamily Unplugged Saturday morning, the hierarchy of the messaging to tell someone what we're doing and why they should join us, that never changes. So those are universal things that have helped me really in my career, because as a marketer, when you learn how to communicate, you learn how to, break down a message for people to understand what you're looking for, it just makes it a little bit easier. And the hard part for me is, like, I'm used to being behind the camera, so being in front of the camera here is always a little tricky for me. But those messages, they resonate, right? And if you can figure that out, it makes it a little bit easier to attract capital for deals and to build your audience, build your network, and make it easier to do it business. And it's just for anything, not just multifamily and raising money, but any business you have. If you got an online business or a brick and mortar business, these are things you're going to need to be able to continue to grow your business, attract new customers and clients. You've got to figure out the messaging, the communications, and the marketing so you can truly grow.
It's old school stuff, right? So I always tell the story. I said, when I first went in the real estate business, my first 9 months in the business, I, I, I implemented some simple fundamentals. I mastered the repetitious boredom on a daily basis. I sold 78 houses my first 9 months in the business.
Oh,
And I was on the phone with a realtor yesterday who said, "Hey, do you coach realtors?" I said, "I would." I said, "I could teach you how to do scripts and dialogues and techniques." And he said, how did you do that? I said, well, I just talk to people. I talk to people every day. He said, could you teach me how to do that? I said, are you willing to do the work? And there was a big, long hesitation. Okay. So I think that, yes, some of that old school stuff works, but people look for that easier microwave way today, right? And it's not available. There's nothing more than doing the work, putting the time in, and doing it over and over again in order to reap the results that you want to reap.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're spot on. I think too, like the attention span today is much shorter than it was. And it's not so much that the attention span as much as there's so many more distractions, right? I mean,
Right.
if you have you ever just sat still? I'm not talking meditating or I'm just saying like just sitting still. How long do you think you could go before you grab your phone or start scrolling or something, right? I don't think people can go 30 seconds, right? And it didn't used to be like that, you know?
Right.
And now, I mean, we can't go more than 30 seconds without something. And I mean, think about being on Instagram or Twitter or something like that. And you're constantly scrolling. You're scrolling, you're seeing what catches your attention. It's got half of a second, right? To spark it. Nope, 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 nope. And that's where we're at right now. So
Yeah.
you're not taking the time to really sit there and go through it. You are moving very quickly, and it's tough to engage and make that connection, which is why I think relationships are key, but also why this is a long tail approach. You've got to focus on building relationships. You have to understand what the problem is that people are facing and how can you help address those issues.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's
And I
right.
think people need to always remember that. We're in the world today. I think they said that the average view on TikTok today is 7 seconds. So, even the 15-second spot that you have, you know, people aren't going to watch the whole thing unless you really catch their eye. Now, here's what I know about your social media. You always catch my eye. I always love your content and the things you say. But, listen, how else are you going to get education and learn about people? So one last thing I kind of want to talk about is this private capital thing. Raising
Yeah.
equity. Bringing limited partners to the deal. Interviewed somebody this week on my other show, Insider Secrets, and I said, and he's raised $100 million, John. Now resonate with that number for a minute.
Oh man, it's huge.
Since 1999, no institutional money, all private capital. So what does that mean? 50, $100,000 investors, right? 200, maybe $1 million here and there. But I said, so how do you do that? He said, oh, I just talk to everybody I know, like very casually, nonchalant. I just ask everybody. I said, what's that conversation like? He said, well, John, hey, listen, I help people earn more money than you're going to get in your retirement or in a bank account. We typically see people making somewhere, upper teens a year, on investments. Is that anything that anybody who might have an interest in? And it's always that third party approach, right? That third party approach goes, what do you mean somebody else? How about me? Right. So that's how people get involved. So it's a good reminder just to be talking to everybody and letting everybody. I bet you that 50% of the people in your life don't know what you do.
Yeah, I mean, spot on. And I mean, there's so many great nuggets there that you just said. I hope, listen, there are times where you take something someone says and you loosely interpret it for yourself. And there are other times where you need to just stick to the script. And what you just said, stick to the script.
Yeah.
Because the third party approach, just to, for those who missed what he's saying is instead of asking that person to invest with them, instead of saying, would you be interested in investing or would you be interested in learning more? He said, do you know anyone who would be
Right.
interested? And the reason that is so strong is twofold. if you ask them directly, would you be interested? First of all, you're putting them on the spot. I don't even know if I know enough about what you said to be able to make a decision right now. You're in
Yeah.
front of me. The sales pressure's up now, right? So there's a bit of anxiety and tension in my ability to either ask more questions or figure out my response, right? So that's one of the challenges and hurdles that's created if you ask that person in that moment. The other thing is when you ask if they know anybody, let's say they have no money to invest and it's not a fit for them. Everyone can think of somebody who might be a fit, right? And if
Right.
you've described who you help and how you help them, you've made it easier for people to think about who in their life you could help. I use this example. Let's say I opened up a bakery and and I approach you and Mike and say, "Hey, Mike, I just opened up this bakery. Do you want to buy 22 sheet cakes?" You'd probably say no. Like, unless there was a specific reason I just got lucky, you'd probably say no. But if I said, "Hey, Mike, I just opened up a bakery. My top clients or people I help are people who are having a big event. Anybody with a wedding, a big birthday party, a graduation. Do you know anybody who's having a big event coming up in the next couple of months?" Much easier for you to sit there and say, "You know what? My daughter's getting married and she's doing something. She's looking for a caterer now. Maybe you should reach out to her. Or you know what? My cousin's going to be graduating. Maybe you should reach out to him." I've now made it easy for you to identify somebody to connect with
Mhm.
me, as opposed to asking you, "Do you want to, buy even if it's one sheet cake? Do you want to buy a sheet cake?" Not really. I mean, I like cake, but not that much, right?
Yeah.
So it's the approach of, and then if it is a fit for you, now you're like, "Oh man, that's a great fit for me." Sure, I'd love to hear more about it. So I think there's different ways there, and part of it for me is like continue to grow the conversation because this is a long relationship thing. I have investors who invest with me and they've been hearing me for 4 or 5 years now. I have friends
Right.
who've invested with me just in the last year who've known about me doing this for the last 5 years, right? But they
Yeah.
just invested with me 4 years later. So you have to wait for people to be ready as well. Like someone's situation changes. Maybe, today it's just not a fit for them. Maybe they got money tied up. Maybe they're still learning about real estate. Maybe you're the first person to even make them think about real estate. So I now need to take a few months or maybe a few weeks to learn and educate myself. Okay. What is like, I've only known real estate as maybe being a landlord. So now you're talking about buying apartments. Whoa, that's a whole new ball game, right? We talked about playing a different game. I may need a moment to digest that. So I think that's why it's really important to not go for the quote unquote sale immediately, as opposed to position yourself as an advisor, helping people out, figuring out what it is that they need. And then as you share how you help people, they can help to identify anybody who may be a fit for you and your business.
And John, I just want to say that this is no ordinary sheet cake this morning. And if people just tuning in are just getting that comment, you're going to have to go back and listen to the whole thing. John, it's about time to wrap up. Any last comments or thoughts that you want to give the listeners before we make a couple closing comments?
Yeah, a couple things. So, if you find yourself in that position of being intrigued by apartment investing and wanting to figure out what the next step may be, we've put together a sample deal package on our website. You can check that out at casmoncapital.com/sample deal. It's not a real deal. It's a sample deal. I kind of, took multiple things I was looking at, put them together just to kind of, show an illustration of what a package looks like. And it's great for active investors who are trying to figure out, okay, if I have a deal, what do I need to communicate? What should I be telling people about this property? I think it's great for those people. And then if you're a passive investor and you hear different terms, you hear someone say a pref return or GPLP splits or things like this that maybe you don't know what all those things mean today. It's great to sit there and maybe go through that document. You can then Google terms or go look up terms as you need. And then we
Right.
send some follow-up emails to help you get a little more comfortable with what to look for when you're looking at a deal or looking at an opportunity. But you can check that out at casmoncapital.com/sample deal. And, reach out if you have any questions there.
Awesome. John, you know what? Appreciate you being here. Couple big shout outs this morning. So it's my mom's birthday, and I just want to say happy birthday, Mom.
Buy
And
that sheet cake for mom, man. Come on.
that's right. I need a sheet cake, don't I? All of a sudden, I just remembered that. But yeah, my mom's 88 and still kicking. So
Happy birthday, mom.
doing well. Yeah, happy birthday, Mom. Also, big shout out. I have I have the opportunity. I'm going to get to speak at the Windy City RIA coming up here on January 30th. That'll be at the Navigator Tap Room at 2 p.m. Central Time. If you can't make the event live, we will. It'll be live streamed. So big shout out to Chris and Angela for putting this group together. Windy City RIA. It's a great group in Chicago. John, I know you have one too, don't you?
Yeah,
Chicago.
we just did our virtual meetup on Monday. We did a goal setting session, and then we meet the third Monday of every month.
Nice, awesome. So if you guys are looking for a networking group, if you're looking for RIAs, John's got one. Chris and Angela, Windy City RIA. I'll be speaking there on the 30th, and also John, just kind of excited about this one, but March 1st, I'm speaking at the University of Illinois. So, I'm pretty excited. Some speaking engagements coming up this year, and looking for more. John, I have that story of hope and inspiration, and I want to bring, I want people in the world to understand that we can't let the past define ourselves, and that what's happened to us in the past, don't look in the rearview mirror, look forward out the windshield, and drive the car forward. And you can do a difference in your life, not just for you, but for other people around you. And that goes back to the comment I made earlier about the shareholder, right? The stakeholder in the deal, around the deal. What you do, you're paying it forward. Hey, glad you were here today. Good to see you. I'm going to move you to the green room for a minute. If you want to hang out with me for a minute, let me close this out and I'll be right there.
Yeah, Mike, can I say one last thing real quick, just on your last point?
Absolutely.
I think it's really important. We talked a lot about, my story and my journey today, but I hope the insights you could gather from my story help you with your story and your journey. And to Mike's point about, the stakeholders and shareholders, I think about investing from 3 places, because you can certainly build your own portfolio and do your own thing and take care of yourself and be financially free, but not make a bigger impact on anyone else. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But, we do what we do with syndication really to have an impact on our 3 circles. The first is the first circle is, our family, those are our friends, family, people who are really close to us. The second is going to be on our community. So this is the places we live. These are the groups that we belong to. And then the third is going to be our causes. So what causes do you care about? What changes do you want to see in the world? What impact do you want to leave? So when we talk about investing and talk about having an abundance mindset, it really is a matter of impacting your circle, your community, and your causes. And that's why we try to do bigger things so we can have a greater impact on this world and leave it better than what we found it.
Yeah. Boy, you couldn't have said that any better. Always save the best for last, right?
Thank you, Mike.
On to move you out. Hang on. Don't go anywhere. Hey, everybody. That's Multifamily Unplugged for Saturday morning this week. Glad that you were here. Glad you had an opportunity to listen in. If not, this will be out on Facebook and LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel later, where you'll be able to go grab it and listen to it. And if you want to listen to it again, I know that my guest today, John Casmon from Casmon Capital, just had a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. He's been in the business, scaled his business, his portfolio, and really brings value. And we talked about it to the stakeholder and shareholder. And not only is he a smart business guy, but he's got a heart of gold and just really wants to give back and provide value for all those around him. So reach out to John. He's got a bunch of opportunity, a lot of different things you can talk about. And as I mentioned earlier, if I can ever answer any questions, don't hesitate to go to mycoreintentions.com Mike at mycoreintentions.com, DM me. Find us on social media, wherever you hang out, on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Go like us and love us. Subscribe on YouTube, and you'll see the content that we pop up all the time. Thanks for being here. We're here every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, and look forward to seeing you next week. All right, everybody. See you later.